The roar of jet engines filled the sky, but nothing could have prepared anyone on board Flight 492 for the chaos that was about to unfold. In a split second, the plane lost control, spiraling toward disaster, and 187 lives hung in the balance. Most passengers had no idea. Help was already on the way. Someone who had spent years mastering high-speed aerial maneuvers and life-or-death decisions in an F-16 fighter jet. Meet Captain Rachel Viper Lawson, a former Air Force pilot whose reputation for precision and calm under pressure was legendary. She had left military life behind, trading the cockpit for a quieter civilian world, but fate had other plans. When the distress call came, Rachel didn't hesitate. She jumped into action, relying on instincts honed over thousands of flight hours, ready to take on a challenge that no commercial pilot had ever faced. As she guided the plane through turbulence, mechanical failures, and the panicked cries of passengers, an unexpected twist added a new layer of suspense. High above, F-22 fighter jets appeared on the radar. And then, in a moment that sent chills down her spine, the radio crackled with voices calling her by her old call sign. Suddenly, what started as a routine rescue mission turned into something much bigger, something tied to secrets, loyalties, and skills only a handful of people in the world possessed. Rachel Viper Lawson gripped the controls, her eyes scanning every instrument with razor-sharp focus. Years of flying F-16s had taught her to trust her instincts, but nothing in her career had prepared her for a commercial airliner in freefall, packed with terrified passengers. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down harder than any G-force she had ever endured. Every decision mattered, every second counted. Before the crisis, Rachel's life had seemed ordinary. After leaving the Air Force, she traded the adrenaline of combat missions for routine civilian flights, mentoring young pilots and living quietly. But the same skills that once made her a top fighter pilot now placed her in a position to become a hero. She had always known that flying came with risks, but she never imagined those risks would collide with lives she didn't know she could save. The F-22s above weren't just backup, they were part of a mysterious operation. Rachel didn't fully understand. Their sudden appearance raised questions she didn't have time to answer. Who had tracked her? Why were they calling her old call sign, Viper? And what did it mean for the passengers she was trying to protect? Below, families clutched hands, flight attendants struggled to maintain calm, and the plane itself seemed to groan under the strain. Every mile Rachel navigated through storm clouds and turbulence intensified the tension. Time was slipping away, and the line between success and disaster was razor. The sky wasn't just a battlefield anymore. It was a puzzle of secrets, loyalty, and danger, and Rachel was at the center of it all. The answers were coming, but would they arrive in time to save 187 lives? The storm was far from over. The cabin of Flight 492 had become a pressure cooker of fear and confusion. Passengers whispered prayers, clutched their seats, and tried to make sense of alarms and flashing lights. Flight attendants moved like shadows, doing their best to project calm, but the reality was undeniable. The plane was fighting for its life, and so were the people on it. High above, Rachel's mind raced through calculations and maneuvers she had once executed instinctively in combat. Every adjustment of the controls could mean the difference between survival and catastrophe. She could hear the faint but unmistakable hum of the F-22s above, communicating in code, their presence both reassuring and unsettling. Why were they here now? She hadn't been on an active mission, hadn't requested backup. Yet, somehow, her old military life had reached across the skies to this moment. Meanwhile, in the control room of the airline, panic rippled through the air. Air traffic controllers tried to track the plane, sending fragments of guidance to the crew, but the situation defied normal protocol. Families watching the news couldn't understand the sudden appearance of fighter jets, or the urgency in the voice calling out a pilot's call sign over a civilian radio channel. Questions piled up, but no answers came fast enough. Back in the cockpit, Rachel wrestled not only with the plane's faltering systems, but with her own doubts. Could she trust the mysterious F-22 pilots? Were they allies, or was this part of a larger threat she hadn't anticipated? Every decision was a gamble, every second a test of nerves and skill. Below, hundreds of lives depended on her, while above, secrets from her past hovered like storm clouds. The tension was unbearable, the stakes impossibly high, and the next moments would demand more than skill. They would demand courage beyond anything Rachel had faced before. Lightning split the sky ahead, illuminating the battered fuselage of Flight 492 as Rachel fought to steady the plane. The turbulence had grown violent, each jolt sending a fresh wave of panic through the cabin. Passengers screamed, seatbelts strained, and oxygen masks swung like pendulums, but Rachel's focus never wavered. Every decision she made now was life or death. Every second stretched into eternity. The F-22s above cut through the storm, their presence both a lifeline and a mystery. "Viper, hold steady, we're here," came the familiar crackle of her old call sign. The voice was comforting, yet it carried an unspoken urgency. Rachel knew she couldn't rely on them entirely. The responsibility for 187 lives rested squarely on her shoulders. She had trained for impossible situations, but nothing in her career had felt like this. The plane was failing piece by piece, and the storm seemed intent on pushing it past the edge. Inside the cabin, subplots unfolded in parallel with Rachel's struggle. A mother whispered reassurances to her frightened child, a veteran silently prayed, and a flight attendant gritted her teeth, trying to keep panic from spreading. Each person's story intertwined with Rachel's actions, their survival hinging on her skill and courage. And yet, the biggest question loomed: why were the F-22s here now? And who had activated this chain of events? The radio chatter hinted at a deeper operation, one Rachel hadn't anticipated, and every passing second revealed the plane inching closer to catastrophe. The storm raged on, the engines groaned, and Rachel's heart pounded as she prepared for the moment that would demand everything she had. The climax was coming, and the sky itself seemed to hold its breath. Just as Rachel thought she had a handle on the plane, an unexpected alarm blared a warning she hadn't anticipated. One of the engines was failing faster than she could compensate for, and the onboard systems began flickering unpredictably. The F-22s above mirrored her maneuvers, but even their precision couldn't shield the passengers from the new danger that had just emerged. Sweat ran down her face as she realized this wasn't just a mechanical failure. Someone or something was interfering with the plane's controls. The radio crackled again. "Viper, confirm position. We're seeing anomalies." It wasn't just the storm now. Rachel's stomach sank as she recognized the voice wasn't entirely friendly. There was a sharp edge, a caution she hadn't heard before from her old wingman. Were the F-22s allies? Or were they part of a hidden operation that had put her and the passengers directly in harm's way? Every instinct screamed caution, but hesitation could cost hundreds of lives. Below, the cabin tension escalated. Flight attendants clung to rails, passengers cried out, and every person on board seemed to sense the invisible forces at work. Rachel's mind raced. Could she keep control, or had the skies themselves become a battlefield she couldn't win? The storm and the failing systems were bad enough, but this new twist interference, hidden motives, and questions about the F-22's true purpose thrust the crisis into uncharted territory. Each second now carried more danger than the last. Rachel gripped the controls tighter, her knuckles white, and forced herself to stay calm. The climax was almost here, and the stakes had just doubled. The fate of 187 passengers hung in the balance, and nothing would prepare anyone for what was coming next. Rachel's hands moved with lightning precision. Her eyes locked on the controls as the plane shuddered violently. The failing engine screamed, and the storm pressed down like an unrelenting force. Every instinct from her F-16 days kicked in: calculations, split-second maneuvers, and a calm focus that seemed almost superhuman. She guided Flight 492 through the turbulence, banking sharply, compensating for the system's glitch. And slowly, inch by inch, the plane stabilized. Above, the F-22s executed flawless cover maneuvers. Then the radio crackled one last time. "Viper, you've got this. We're clearing the path below." The interference was revealed to be a sophisticated cyber-simulated threat and advanced, drill-testing civilian and military coordination in real emergencies. It wasn't sabotage, it was a test, and Rachel had passed. Relief flooded through her, but she couldn't allow herself to relax until every passenger was safe. In the cabin, screams gave way to cautious cheers as the plane leveled out. Flight attendants clutched hands with passengers, whispering reassurances, while families held each other tightly. Rachel guided the plane toward a smooth, emergency landing. One by one, the 187 passengers disembarked, shaken but alive, and the crew erupted in quiet celebration. Rachel exhaled for the first time in hours, allowing herself a fleeting moment of pride. Just as she thought it was over, her headset crackled again. A new voice, unfamiliar and urgent, said simply, "Viper, we need you for the real mission." The F-22s streaked across the horizon, disappearing into the clouds. Rachel's heart raced. She had saved everyone, but the sky had already called her back into a world she thought she had left behind. The adrenaline surged, and the adventure, it seemed, was far from over. The chaos had finally subsided. On the tarmac, emergency crews checked the plane, but the real heroes were already walking away. Rachel and her crew, exhausted but steady, their faces showing relief and quiet pride. Passengers slowly emerged from the cabin, tears streaming, hugs exchanged, and murmurs of gratitude filling the air. Each life saved carried its own story: a mother, holding her child tighter, a young man silently thanking the pilot, a couple who had faced their fear and survived. Rachel watched them all, realizing the true weight of what she had accomplished.